So in this lesson, we're going to be looking at conditional controlled loops, do while and do until loops. And our objective is to learn how to code condition controlled loops so we can get parts of the code to repeat itself until a condition is true. So you need to be able to find these keywords in the code, loop, do, until, and find the condition and know what is going to make that condition true and false. So before we begin, what you need to make sure you have got open is .NET Fiddle, and it's been set up for VB.NET, and if you've logged in to save your work, you've logged in using your school email address and the password which you have been told, and you have gone to the portal and you have loaded up Objective Task 7 and that you save, either print that off and do on paper, or you save as a copy and you save it into your files, and hopefully you've got a nice folder called Computer Science where you can save it into there and click save, and then you'll be able to make copies. So once you've got all of those open, we can just talk about what a loop is. So what condition controlled loop is. So we've got the input from the user, which produces an output to the screen. For example, what we do when we're programming, we type in and that output appears in the .NET Fiddle website. And then what we've got is the code at the top, and we've talked about in the last lesson how counter-controlled variables repeat the code for a set amount of time. What we're now going to do is replace them with do while and do until loops, which continue until a condition is true in case of a do until loop. So it will go through, it will have a variable, in this case we've called choice, which I've set choice to 1 to begin with. You can see down here in our representation of memory, and that code then outputs, changes the output, and then repeats. Now the input choice, we've inputted something that's changed choice to 2, so the output changes and our code repeats, and then something's happened that's changed, our input has changed choice to end. Now because it's do until choice equals end, and now it does equal end in memory, the output changes but the loop ends. So how does that look in Visual Basic? So we write that as do until, and then at the end we have a loop. So we have, I'll start our loop with the line do, the keywords do and until, and then we have a loop at the end to show the computer that our do has finished. So we, just like here. And then in between we indent them, and the lines of code that repeat, and we have as many lines as we want that repeating, are in between the do until and the loop. So you need to be able to find the line number or copy where it says do until, because that's the start of the loop, and find the line number or copy the line where it ends, which is where it says loop. We then, next to where it says until, we add the condition, and that needs to be a variable and a condition, what we want it to be equal to or not equal to, or a range that is between, next to the until. We also might at the top, we should have up here, I'll use my pen, if we're using the variable choice, which is what's called a flag variable, because it flags when the loop should end, we set that variable to what it's going to be to begin with. So in our last example we set it to 1. So here I set it to I assign 1 to choice, so that it at least sets the loop going once. If I started it off with choice being equal to end, then this loop wouldn't happen, because it would check the condition, so choice is already equal to end, and then jump over the top and come to here, and then carry on with the code underneath. So let's have a look at that as an example in .NET Fiddle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just essentially make the loop that I've just talked about. So I'm going to declare a variable called choice as a string. And what I'm going to do is ask the user to input a line of code, input a choice until I'm happy that they've said end. And this, I'm going to show you how this works with, say, like a menu. So I'm just going to add some comments to make this a bit more readable and maintainable. I'm going to set an initial condition of flag variable. So choice equals 1, and because it's a string, I'm going to put it in speech marks. So it puts the ASCII value in. Now, so what I'm going to say is do until choice equals, I'm going to set the condition for it to finish. So this now, line 11, is the start of my loop, and you can see now it's got an error saying it must have a matching loop. So to get rid of that error, I'm going to type in loop. And you see once I've typed in loop, it's automatically indented it. And now you can see when I go on line 12, in between the start and end of my loop, lines 11 and 13, line 12, I have got, it's indented it for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to console.writeLine, and I'm going to put menu, so give you an idea of why this might be used. Console.writeLine 1, play game, and it doesn't have to be a game, but the game's quite a nice way of doing it. I'm actually going to copy this bit to make it a bit quicker for me to do. To save game. I'm then going to just do a blank line to make it a bit easier to read, and then I'm going to do end close game. Okay, so just add a bit of code, output menu choices. Start loop and set condition to finish the loop. So just adding some comments to make it more readable. And then what I'm going to do now is get the user input. So we're going to do that with a console. I'm actually just going to do write because I want to do this on the same line. Console.write, what is your choice? Space, and then I'm going to use a read line to assign the user's input using a console.read line. So now what it's going to do every time it loops is it repeat all of this code in here. So it's going to write out this menu, and then it's going to write out what is the choice, and then it's going to wait for the user to write something in and press enter, and it's going to keep going round and round and round until I type in end. So let's try that. make this a bit bigger. So here we go, it's output the menu. So what is your choice? Let's do 1. And it's written it out again. What is your choice? I'll tell you what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to stop that there. I'm just, because we can see that it's repeated the menu. Actually, let me just show you. I'll do 2. And actually, if I do any number, it's just going to keep repeating, because I don't actually tell it to do anything with the choice, which I could do. And then when I type in end, it's gone to end, and as you see, it stopped looping. Now I'm just going to add a couple of things in to make it a bit clearer what's going on. I'm going to add in a console.writeLine, closing program. Right, so we can see that it's ended. And what I'm also going to do is tell the console each time it loops to, what's happened here? To clear, which is a function or method that's just going to clear the screen. So let's run this again. Oh, what's happened here? I've done an error. Don't know why that's happened. Stack trace. String maybe full path. Doesn't look like there's an error. Let me I'm just going to copy this and refresh the page. Let's run again. Take this line out just to make sure it's not that. Oh, why is that? That should work. The handle is invalid. Let's type that in again. Console.clear. Oh, alright, okay, it doesn't like that. I'm just going to put a blank. And then, and let me just type in 1 to show it repeats again, and then do end, just to show you that it's end, and it's what's happened at the end, or it's seen that it's end, choice equals end. It jumps over to line 23, which is where my end of my loop is, and then comes to console.writeLine. Not sure why this line isn't working, so I've commented it out. I should also add a comment here to make it more readable. Message to confirm the loop has ended and the program is finished. Okay. So if we go back to the PowerPoint, there is another type of loop I talked about, which is a do while. And what a do while does is it repeats while a condition is true, and it's waiting for it to be false. So it looks slightly different, but instead of writing until, we write while, and we write it at the bottom. Okay, we still have our indent, and we still have the start with the do and the end with loop, and the lines of code in between them. But now we have our condition at the bottom. And what happens is now it keeps checking the loop until the end, but it only checks the condition at the end of the loop. And that means that we don't have to have our line that sets our flag variable at the top. We can ignore it as long as inside the code something happens. So let me show you what that looks like in .NET Fiddle. So as I said to you, I don't need this anymore, because what's going to happen is I'm going to move this to the end. I'm going to move this to the end, and I'm going to change it to while. So now I'm going to do it now. Do until choice is not equal to end. So keep doing it while it's not equal to end. Now that means that because I don't need to set choice up to begin with, because in here I can't move on to the condition until the user has typed something into choice. So let's try this. Again, it looks exactly the same. It's come into the loop, written this out, but it hasn't checked my flag variable choice yet. Keep coming down, and we loop while choice is not equal to end. So if I put 1, it's not equal to end, it's repeated. If I put 2, it's not equal to end, so it's repeated. If I put in any number or any other word, it's going to keep looping until I type in end, and it drops out. And you can see at the bottom now it said closing program. What you need to do now is come back to the Word document, remember and answer all the questions. Remember to save it in your own area, and when you have finished you can click on share and type in my name and say me that this is your objective 8, and I'm going to put a tracker together so you can see what's going on.